Hi, how's it going? This is Resident of Collinwood for YouTube, back with another Dark Shadows video for you guys and gals. I am here to talk about Carolyn Collins Stoddard Hawks and Roger Collins. Well, before she became a Hawks, she was just Carolyn Collins Stoddard, Collins being her middle name, obviously. And I'm more discussing what happened during the Phoenix arc between her, between Carolyn and between her uncle Roger. I think this is a real important moment in Dark Shadows. Um, Keep in mind, up until this point, prior to Carolyn getting put in charge, prior to Elizabeth being put in a comatose state, and you know, before Elizabeth put her in charge, ultimately, Carolyn's been a bit of a brat. She's had her good qualities, she's had her bad qualities. So we do see that she cares about the family and she cares about other people. I'm not saying they don't show that, they do. But she's also come across as a bit selfish and a bit bratish. I mean, she's very young. She doesn't she's a woman who we're led to believe doesn't know what she wants. Do I think she knows what she wants? At times I think she does, but I think at times she's so pig-headed she refuses to listen. I also think there's a moment where when you go back to the very beginning episodes, and her and Joe Haskell are having this weird romantic relationship, but she doesn't want to marry Joe. And this is I'll talk about this before I get into her and Roger. Elizabeth just want it seems to me, I always get the impression that Elizabeth just wanted her daughter Carolyn to marry Joe, one to be happy because she realized Joe is a faithful man. He's very honest and forthright. She wants the knight in shining armor. She wants this honest, goodness hometown guy. She doesn't want some rebel marrying her daughter because I mean let's be honest. Paul Stoddard was in every way a rebel and a con artist. I mean, Elizabeth does not want her daughter to repeat her mistakes. So she's trying to arrange this marriage. Now she's not so much getting the preacher ready, but she's doing everything to help it along and by not so subtle ways. Joe getting a raise, getting a very very high raise that she approves of, and she approves it so he can get his boat. And she brings up the marriage even. She goes, "Oh, I didn't do it just so you could get married. No, no." And Carolyn's like, "Yeah, I see right through this, Mom." And she does, and good for her. She should. Uh, so there are things Elizabeth is trying to do now. If Carolyn wanted, the reason Carolyn does not want to marry Joe is because she's not in love with him. She cares very much for him, but she's not in love with him. And really, what sets a lot of things in motion is the arrival of Burke Devlin, obviously. She begins becoming smitten with Burke, very attracted to him, because Burke's a very forceful man. She wants somebody who's strong and rugged, um, who's not all gee shucks, you know. Carolyn likes the bad boy. Bad boys is what we'll say. Um, so why doesn't Carolyn leave? And what I mean by that is Carolyn has money. She has a trust fund. She could just leave Collinsport. She doesn't need a Joe Haskell. She doesn't need a Burke Devlin. She could just go. And her main reason for staying wasn't so much Joe Haskell. Her excuse for staying was, oh, she didn't want to leave her mother alone. Well, her mother tells her, well, I won't be alone now. And her Carolyn knew her mother was sending for a governess. So when Carolyn hears that she arrived by her mother tells her, "Hey, I won't be alone." She's like, "She showed." And notice how quickly Carolyn changes that subject to the governess. Like, she's not harping back on leaving so much. This is what told me Carolyn really wasn't wanting to leave. These sequences. And that's where I got the sense of there's more to Paul Stoddard that we're not being told. There's more to this that we haven't not been told so much. Not just the basement stuff, but Carolyn. Because Carolyn wants to what Carolyn is really doing is finding any excuse not to leave Collinsport, let alone Collinwood. She does not want to leave there and miss her hope is that her dad comes back through the door one day so she can be the one who confronts him. So she can be the one who says, "How dare you left your wife, my mother of all people, a good woman." That's what she wants to do. She wants to smack him. She's not happy with him. And I always got that sense from Carolyn. She was not the happiest with her dad for doing what he did. So that's what she does. She does not leave. Now back to her and Roger. Carolyn is very worried about her mother, obviously. So Elizabeth wants to speak to Carolyn, and she does. She says, "Don't let them take David. Don't let Laura take David. Don't let David go with his mother." Those are her final real orders before getting put into a coma by the Phoenix, Laura Collins, obviously. And this is really where you see Carolyn grow up a lot. She's every bit the matriarch of Collinwood right now. I hate to call her the substitute matriarch, but in every way she is. And she's a damn good one at it. For the time this goes on, Nancy Bear really did a great job of. You saw her character grow up really, really fast. And I love what happens during this whole process of how her and Roger are sort of going back and forth. Roger says, "Hey, that's my son." Well, my mother controls the money, and I control whether you continue to stay in this house. And if your son is going to leave this house, well, then so are you. She's holding the same thing over his head that her mother did, which is smart. So Roger's like, "All right, you think you've won this round, kitten?" And he always calls her kitten, but here he's very upset with her, and he's more upset that she got all this power handed to her. And in reality, there's a reason she got it handed to her. Yes, it is because she's Elizabeth's daughter, but it's because Elizabeth can trust Carolyn a lot more than she can trust Roger. Keep in mind, the other things that are going on besides Laura is still Burke Devlin is still hounding the Collins family. You know, there's a point in time during the beginning episodes where Roger says, "Oh, why don't we just give Burke Collinwood and just leave?" Um, would you hand someone the keys to your castle knowing they were wanting to get rid of it? No, you wouldn't. So that is on Elizabeth's mind, even though she's being sort of tortured by the Phoenix. She knows she can't trust Roger. She knows that Roger will just hand David to Laura and hand Collinwood to Burke. So there's not just one thing at play. There's two. And yes, David's life is a lot more important than any old house, but David needs a home to grow up in as well, a structured home as well. And that's what Collinwood represents. It represents everything. Both Collinwoods, whether it's the old house or the great house, represent the Collins ancestors, what they built, the legacy they've left, the Collins family. So that's what Elizabeth is thinking about when she puts Carolyn in charge. Well, who can I trust with the legacy? Carolyn. It's a no-brainer. I can't trust Roger. And Roger's demonstrated that, really. So here's Carolyn and Roger. They're bickering. And you might say, well, why doesn't Roger have any real power of his own? Why doesn't he have a say in the estate? If you've never watched Dark Shadows before, to answer that question is Roger sold his share off. Well, guess who bought that share? Elizabeth. That's that's why a lot of the rooms are shut down. That's why the entire West Wing is shut down. They don't use every single room in the house. They only use a certain wing of the house. Um, so that's why Burke is when Burke's inquiring about the Collins family, he sees that they're paying very minimal on certain things. Well, the reason they're paying minimal is because Elizabeth had to give Roger a lot of money for his shares. I mean, he put them up, and it was the highest bidder. Well, she was the highest bidder. She outbid everybody. She was not going to let Roger's share of the estate fall into anyone's hands. Let someone who wasn't a Collins, and she being the Collins that she is, bought his shares, bought her brother's shares. So that's why Roger doesn't have any real power over the actual estate itself to help explain that. So here's Carolyn. She's left in charge of the estate. She's been basically made, um, I don't want to make it sound like Palpatine emergency power, but in many ways it is. She's been granted this power to be the matriarch. And she is quite a matriarch. She stands up to Roger. She stands up to Laura. And she goes out and hires Dr. Peter Guthrie, who's recommended by Frank Gardner. So I love how Gardner starts to worry too. But Roger doesn't really like Dr. Guthrie. Oh, you're helping my sister. Why are you here? And Carolyn's like, because I want him here, and that ends that. So I mean, Carolyn puts her foot down right away, and she plants it firm, and it's great to see that kind of development with the character. You sort of you're developing early on, but they don't stop her development. They don't stun it. They keep it going, which was really nice to see in this series. And the interaction between her and Roger, just sort of taking jabs at one another, is so good. Louis Edmonds and Nancy Barrett do a fantastic job. But again, here's Nancy Barrett. Nancy Barrett's Carolyn Collins Stoddard wields all the power at this time, and she should. Um, does does Carolyn fear Laura? Carolyn is more suspicious of Laura than anything else. She blames Laura for what happened to her mother. She's already got in her mind, hey, something happened here, and it's Laura's fault somehow. Um, which doesn't bode well for Laura, because once they hire Dr. Guthrie, I like what Dr. Guthrie does. This is one of the best character attributes that in Dark Shadows that I love most. He doesn't jump on a side right away. He's more of an open-minded investigator into the paranormal, and I love that. I love the fact that here's this parapsychologist who doesn't just so you have this great interaction between an actor and actress who are very much going back and forth on each other, like I was saying. I think one of the best things too is with this overall arc is with Dr. Guthrie, mind you, as I was saying, he doesn't come in uh, taking a side. He openly investigates it. He doesn't, presume anything, which is so nice to see. It would be all too easy just for him to do that. And I love characters like that. I love characters who, instead of all taking a side, they just more come in as a neutral party, and they're looking into things and judging for themselves. But here's the thing, though, too. To my buddy Mark Gilman's credit, like he was saying, this is also what can get you killed in Dark Shadows. If you start digging in for information and you find it out, you're going to end up dead. Bill Malloy, obviously, Dr. Peter Guthrie. It's just, hey, You go seeking the truth in dark shadows, you're basically a walking corpse. It's just only a matter of time before you get killed off. But I love the fact that Nancy Barrett, uh, Carolyn Collins Stoddard, her character, and Lewis Edmonds' character really clash well. Because what this shows you here is Carolyn's character really grows up in these episodes. She really puts her big girl pants on, so to speak. And she does. And I love how they're using her to keep David, to hire an investigator, a parapsychologist, but at the same time, they're not taking away from characters like a Victoria Winters or anyone else. They're keeping these characters fresh and integrated in the storyline. Look at Sam Evans, for example. He's forced to paint Laura Collins by Josette, which I love. Um, uh, Victoria Winters, Alexander Moltke Isles, does a really great job with the interactions between her and the ghost of Josette. Josette is summoning her to the graveyard, like, hey, you need to. Like, oh, I smell jasmine. It's really a great scene with her and Frank. Um, and again, her going to Burt Devlin. I've talked about how the ghost use the living, and they do to fight their battles. And it's really, really amazing. I hope you guys enjoyed this first video. I'll be back later tonight with my second. Have a great rest of your day.